Jake Haro throwing a black bag over the highway. Caught by cam days before the Emmanuel Haro disappearance. Witness confessed Jake begged for my help. The highway footage. On an ordinary stretch of highway, under the cover of night, a single act was caught on camera. An act that would later take on an entirely new meaning. The footage shows Jake Haro pulling over, lifting a black bag, and throwing it over the highway rail. At the time, it raised no alarms. To passing drivers, it was just another moment easily forgotten. But days later, when his 7-month-old son Emmanuel was reported missing, this overlooked footage suddenly resurfaced. What was in that bag? Why did Jake discard it in such a way? And why did a witness later come forward, confessing that Jake had begged them for help in the days leading up to Emmanuel's disappearance? Tonight on DetectiveMax, we're not just replaying the highway footage, we're breaking it down frame by frame. We'll examine the timing, the witness testimony, and the sequence of events that transformed what looked like a simple roadside moment into a haunting piece of a much larger puzzle. This isn't just a story about one family. It's about the clues hiding in plain sight, the questions that remain unanswered, and the reality that sometimes the truth is caught on camera long before anyone realizes its importance. Stay with us, because what you're about to see may completely reshape the way you understand the Emmanuel Haro case. But before we dive into this, kindly subscribe to our channel if you believe in fighting for justice. Because every view, every comment, every subscriber is a stand against silence and a step toward justice. We've just crossed 5,000 subscribers, all because of your support, and we need that same energy to reach 6,000, then 7,000, and then 10,000. So go ahead and drop your fingerprints on that subscribe button, and definitely where you're watching from, because wherever you are, the day this vision is fulfilled, I will send my appreciation straight to you. Let's keep building this community that stands and fights for justice together. It begins on a quiet stretch of highway. A camera meant only to capture routine traffic recorded something no one expected to matter. In the dead of night, Jake Haro appeared, stepping out of his vehicle and tossing a black bag over the rail. At first, it seemed like nothing more than a strange moment, an action that might otherwise be forgotten in the blur of countless passing cars. But just days later, everything changed. Jake's young son, Emmanuel, was reported missing, and suddenly that overlooked highway footage became the center of an unfolding mystery. What was in the bag? Why was Jake there that night? And how does the confession of a witness, who later admitted that Jake had begged for their help, connect to this eerie piece of footage? Tonight on DetectiveMax, we go beyond the headlines. We'll break down the exact timeline, examine the witness accounts, and uncover the hidden layers that make this one of the most puzzling and haunting stories yet. Stay with us as we explore how a single moment caught on camera could hold the answers to a case that has shaken an entire community. The discovery of the footage was almost by accident. Investigators, retracing every step of Jake Haro's movements in the days before Emmanuel's disappearance, began reviewing nearby highway cameras, routine surveillance that normally only tracks traffic flow. What they found was a recording that changed the tone of the investigation. The footage showed Jake pulling his car to the side of the highway late at night. He stepped out, opened the back of the vehicle, and appeared to struggle with a black bag before lifting it and throwing it over the highway barrier. His actions were quick, deliberate, and then he drove off into the night. At the time the footage was captured, no one thought much of it. People stop on highways for many reasons, and the cameras record countless uneventful moments. But what makes this particular recording stand out is the timing. It took place just days before Emmanuel was reported missing. That detail turned what looked like an ordinary roadside stop into a moment of serious suspicion. Investigators now had to ask themselves, why was Jake there? What was in that bag? And how does this late-night footage connect to the heartbreaking disappearance of his son? This was no longer just background footage, it was a potential turning point in the case. While the footage raised suspicion, it wasn't the only breakthrough. Not long after, a key witness came forward with a statement that added an entirely new dimension to the case. According to their account, Jake had approached them in private, appearing anxious and unsettled. His words were direct, "I need your help." He insisted it was for something important, something he couldn't handle alone. The witness admitted that in that moment, they felt uneasy. Without knowing what Jake truly meant, they chose to decline. Only later, as the news of Emmanuel's disappearance spread, did the weight of that conversation begin to sink in. For investigators, this confession was critical. It suggested that Jake may have been reaching out to others in the days leading up to Emmanuel's disappearance, trying to involve them in actions that still remain unclear. And it left the public asking, was this the missing puzzle piece authorities needed to connect the highway footage with Jake's private actions? Or was it simply another layer in a case already overflowing with contradictions and unanswered questions? To understand the full weight of the highway footage, we need to step back and look at the timeline as investigators did. On August 10th, the traffic camera captured Jake Haro on the side of the highway, removing a black bag from his car and throwing it over the barrier. At that moment, it was just another piece of routine surveillance. Nothing stood out. On August 14th, only 4 days later, Emmanuel was reported missing outside a sporting goods store. The story quickly gained attention, and authorities launched a large-scale search involving officers, volunteers, and local residents. By August 22nd, the case had taken a dramatic turn. Both Jake and Rebecca Haro were arrested. The charges against them shifted the focus entirely, moving the case from a search for answers to a deeper investigation into what had truly happened inside the Haro household. Placed at the very center of this timeline, the highway footage suddenly carried enormous weight. What first appeared to be an isolated late-night stop now raised pressing questions. Why was Jake there on August 10th? What was in the bag? And most importantly, how does this unexplained act fit into the days leading up to Emmanuel's disappearance? With the timeline in place, investigators began to close in on the details that mattered most. They retraced Jake's movements, studying GPS data, phone records, and the highway footage that showed him with the black bag. Every stop, every detour, was examined in the hope of uncovering answers. At the same time, inconsistencies in both Jake's and Rebecca's statements became impossible to ignore. Their versions of events didn't always align, and this made the highway footage even more critical. It wasn't just a late-night stop anymore, it became a focal point for uncovering what might have been hidden. But a question loomed: was the bag that Jake discarded truly connected to Emmanuel's disappearance, or was it a red herring that risked pulling investigators away from the real answers? This uncertainty added even more tension to the investigation. Every possibility had to be considered, every clue re-examined. And in the middle of it all stood the haunting image of Jake by the roadside, tossing that bag into the darkness. When the highway footage was finally made public, it spread quickly through the community. Neighbors, residents, and even people far beyond Southern California were left unsettled by what they saw. The image of Jake by the roadside raised more questions than answers. Many asked the same haunting question: if this bag was so important, why was it thrown away in the middle of the night? Conversations sparked on street corners, in coffee shops, and across social media. Rumors began to circulate, and speculation ran high. Some believed the footage held the missing piece investigators needed, while others wondered if it was simply another distraction in an already complicated case. For the community, the footage wasn't just evidence, it was a symbol of secrecy, of unanswered questions, and of the unsettling possibility that someone close to them had been hiding something all along. It pushed neighbors to revisit what they thought they knew about the Haro family, piecing together fragments of information in hopes of finding clarity where official answers were still limited. At the heart of this mystery is the black bag itself, the object caught on camera that continues to spark so many questions. Investigators searched the area where Jake was seen discarding it, but to this day, its contents have never been publicly confirmed. That silence only deepens the intrigue. Viewers, neighbors, and investigators alike have asked the same question: what was in the bag? Was it evidence connected to the case? Was it simply personal belongings? Or was it something Jake never wanted seen again? The fact that no clear answers have been released makes the bag one of the most haunting pieces of this puzzle. It hangs over the case like a shadow, a reminder that even with footage, timelines, and witness accounts, not everything can be neatly explained. And so, the bag remains more than just an object. It is a symbol of the unanswered questions at the center of the Haro investigation, a mystery that refuses to fade. As the investigation deepened, attention returned to the witness whose words first brought the highway footage into sharper focus. Their confession didn't just add another detail, it gave credibility to what had been caught on camera. The witness recalled Jake's desperate plea: "Jake begged me for my help. At the time, the request felt strange and unsettling, but only later did they realize how much weight those words carried. Why did the witness decide to come forward? For some, it was likely fear of what might happen if they stayed silent. For others, perhaps it was guilt for not recognizing the warning signs sooner. But above all, it may have been a sense of duty, a need to ensure that the truth, however complicated, was heard. Their testimony became a turning point. It added weight to the case against Jake, strengthening the link between his late-night actions on the highway and the broader story that investigators were struggling to piece together. Without their words, the footage might have remained a strange but isolated event. With them, it became a central part of the narrative that now defines this case. When you step back and look at everything together, the highway footage, the mysterious black bag, the witness confession, and the timeline of events, a bigger picture begins to form. This case has never been about just one event. It's about a series of choices, hidden actions, and long-kept secrets that shaped the Haro household in ways few truly understood. Each detail, the late-night stop, the plea for help, the shifting stories, becomes part of a larger web investigators have struggled to untangle. And that leads us to the question still hanging over this entire story: was the black bag tossed over the highway the key to unlocking the truth behind Emmanuel's disappearance? Or is it only one fragment of a much larger mystery that continues to unfold? The answers remain elusive. What we know for certain is that the footage, the confession, and the silence around the bag have left a community unsettled, investigators determined, and the public waiting for clarity that has yet to come. As we close tonight's investigation, the questions remain as heavy as ever. What was inside the black bag? Why did Jake beg a witness for help? And how does any of this connect to the disappearance of Emmanuel? For investigators, for the community, and for Emmanuel's memory, the truth about that highway bag is still one of the most urgent mysteries to solve. Until answers are revealed, this piece of the puzzle continues to haunt everyone connected to the case. Now I want to hear from you. If you followed this story, share your thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe the highway footage holds the key to the answers, or is it just one part of a bigger mystery still waiting to be uncovered? Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and stay tuned here on DetectiveMax as we continue to break down the stories, the secrets, and the search for truth behind the headlines.